Hello, everyone. Let us now start, a new segment, the what is called Indian Councils Act 1861. This is part of week three, where we will be learning in this segment about Indian Councils Act, the provisions and the importance. We'll be also studying about Indian Councils Act 1892. And lastly, in this part, we will be also focusing on the Aligarh movement, which was one of the crucial moment uh, in India, especially in the context of Muslims of India, where Aligarh movement led the educational movement, where Muslims by and large benefited, out of this educational consciousness, and they were rallying behind Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who was the founder of Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, and later this college became Aligarh Muslim University. We will be talking about Aligarh movement, the causes and objectives, and the people associated with that movement. So let us now start in this segment. Something on Indian Councils Act, and we'll see that how it differed from 1858 and why there was need of this act just after 3 years of Government of India Act, 1858. So one thing which need to be taken into consideration, that the Parliament in England was deliberating on the matters of India on a very priority basis, because ultimately, India was in a way providing much of the resources, raw materials and others for the industrial production in England, and England being one of the very important and key player in Europe in terms of administration, and also a powerhouse which required raw materials and resources from various colonies, and India was in fact providing a large chunk. So if there will be no proper administration for almost 1 year from say 1857 to 1858, already the colonial administration was crippled, and and the financial losses were immense, and British government was very much aware about that. So they were reforming all these acts in a very consecutive manner, and 1861 was one of the reform in the series of reforms from 1858. So let us see, that how this, culminated. If you can see on the screen the map of India, this is a continental size map of India, where again this reform or this act called Indian Councils Act of 1861 marked a significant transformation in the governments of India under British rule. As I said that Lord Canning, the then Viceroy and Governor General, in fact, introduced this act, because you remember 15-member council was already there, part of the Secretary of States, or the council of the Secretary of State. This was a mini parliament kind of thing, where this Indian Councils Act was introduced. So this act aimed to involve Indians in the administration and to address the administrative needs of the country. This act, in fact, laid the foundation for future legislative development, and was a response to the increasing demand for Indian representation in governance. In the last segment, I actually discussed about that indeed, introduction of the Indian admission in Indian civil services was one of the very positive sign by the colonial powers. But gradual transformation and also reform, where the matter of representation of Indians would in fact kind of provide much impetus in demand for greater representation in the colonial administration. Uh, and because Indian Council Act was much related with the matter of representation, it introduced the portfolio system. Now, the Act introduced portfolio system by creating various departments within the council to enhance the efficiency of the Governor General's administration. Executive Council got transformed. It redefined the Executive Council's role by adopting a cabinet portfolio system with each member overseeing specific areas such as home, revenue, and military. So much like in contemporary times in India, we have all these ministries, the departments, similar like these areas like home, revenue, and military were kind of miniature of ministries where the executive council, each member is going to kind of see these departments, and something like cabinet portfolio system got introduced. Now, the British sought to gain support from Indians by involving them in the council, thereby ensuring the continuation of their operation in India. If we go by the key provisions of the Act, that what we gather from the key provisions is that it in fact introduced the decentralization, which restored legislative powers to the Madras and Bombay presidencies, beginning the process of decentralization. So now, Madras and Bombay would have a kind of they will have their own legislative powers, and they will have independence in their matters, and in a way that decentralization of power empowered Madras and Bombay presidency. Now, it was the first time that Indians were involved in the legislative process with select appointments to the Viceroy's Council. Also, Viceroy was granted the authority to make regulations in emergencies. It was a very significant expansion of executive power, like we have in Article 356 and various other articles in emergency power, which in a way can be very much seen that from 1861 that has been grown, and has been kind of entered into our Constitution of India post 1949. By reinstating legal power to Bombay and Madras, the process of decentralization started. Council of State in India established representative institution involving Indians in the legislative process. It was a very significant development. Some Indians were appointed as non-official representatives of the Viceroy's Executive Council, including the Maharaja of Patiala, Sardinkar Rao, and the Raja of Banaras. New legislative councils were also established for the Northwest Frontier Province, Bengal and Punjab, which aimed at further governance and representation. However, the legislative councils constituted by the government of India Act 1861 had limited power. They were unable to debate on important issues without prior consent, and lacked financial consideration and budgetary control. Furthermore, the bill's final passing required permission from the Viceroy, and the Secretary of State held the power to reject legislation, and this is a very, very contentious issue. Even if Viceroy authorized it, Secretary of State can reject the bill, and the non-officials Indians who worked in these councils were exclusively from the upper caste. So people from the lower caste communities were not allowed uh, to be part of the council. Now, in 1862 council, these officials like Maharaja of Patiala, Raja of Banaras, and Sardinkar Rao, they became part of the legislative council. Uh, you know, uh, in the matter of non-official representatives, some of the members were appointed as non-official representative, marking the beginning of Indian involvement in council. Non-official Indians appointed were exclusively from the upper caste, reflecting the societal hierarchy of the time. Right now, 1861 had also impact on legislative powers. If we see on the screen, it was a restoration of powers. As I said, Madras and Bombay got restored. New legislative councils were established for Northwest Frontier Province, Bengal, and Punjab, although with limited actual power. There were limited budgetary control as well. The councils had no budgetary control and could not discuss, executive authority without government's consent. Now, in the matter of portfolio system and cabinet administration, if we see, there were formal heads. Each government component received a formal head responsible for its management, laying the groundwork for India's cabinet administration, which is very much in function in current times. There was a spokesperson's role. Each head also acted as a spokesperson for their respective department, increasing accountability and organization. And this led to the foundation for future. This system established by Lord Canning created the foundation for future administrative structures in India. Now, in matter of aspirations and participation, if we see, in the matter of legislative involvement, the acts allowed Indians to participate in legislation addressing key matters such as finance and law. This was a stepping stone act because it was seen as a stepping stone in protecting the rights and interests of Indians under colonial rule. In matters of administrative role, it strengthened the role of Indians in the administrative system of British India, despite the limitations. Lastly, if we see that the Indian Councils Act of 1861 and also 1892 were pivotal, in the colonial history of India, marking the beginning of Indian representation in governance. These acts fulfill the aspirations of many Indians, allowing them to partake in the legislative process and contribute to the administration of their country. So, despite the shortcomings in the Act of 1861, such as the restricted role of the Legislative Council, or the acts was various other kind of acts. 1861 Act was indeed a very, very significant step towards the eventual self-governance and independence in India. So, what is the takeaway from this segment? Is we discuss about the provisions, the key provisions where it led to the decentralization, where the powers were kind of decentralized by giving extension of power to or restoration of power to Bombay and Madras presidency. The 1861 Act also created a portfolio system or the cabinet system. Uh, and the cabinet will, each member of the council will be heading the departments such as revenue, home department, or law department, or military affairs, uh, as well as the provision of inclusion of Indians in the decision making process by opening the gate of administration and also decision making process to the Indians was a very positive sign. So from Maharaja of Patiala to Raja of Banaras were part of the administration, but the criticism, of course, is that the very inclusion of the non-official members of the administration, that what we also saw, that the upper caste officials, because ultimately by the time of mid of 19th century, or even full of 19th century, that what we saw was the sort of surge of socio-religious reform movement. And in the socio-religious reform movement, the very attack was on caste hierarchy. So caste hierarchy was very entrenched in Indian society. Upper caste had a very influence over the Indian people, and hence British government, while including non-official, in the administration, majority of the upper caste, non-officials actually got kind of, representation. Lastly, in the end, I would say that 1861 Act, in fact, also created certain kind of excessive powers in the hands of Secretary of State, in India, because though with all the positive changes in administration, and also kind of being a stepping stone as 1861 Act was, it was the power of the Secretary of State which kind of where the Secretary of State had the power to reject all the bills, where the consent was important, and ultimately that kind of crippled the administration to some extent. And also, Indians though were part of the administration, but they did not have certain kind of say in the administration, and ultimately that was unilaterally decided by the Secretary of State, who was kind of direct agent of the British Parliament. So because Parliament took over in 1858 on India, Parliament did not want to give any kind of space so that any drastic changes may also end the very power of the British government in India, or British Raj rather, in India. So, but as it is said that the gradual transformation and agitation and demand and the compromise, agitation and demand and compromise. This was the strategy of our people who led the freedom struggle, and they were very much aware about these sort of movements, and ultimately they agitated, they protested, resisted, and they cooperated sometimes, and then they again demanded some higher on higher issues, and then again compromise and sort of gained something, and gradually it kind of culminated into fruition of establishing all India based organization called Indian National Congress, which in fact started becoming one voice to demand a certain kind of programmatic nationalism, where through that programmatic nationalism, Indians were kind of deciding some of the affairs on their own without even the consent of the council or the British government, and they were kind of doing all kind of social activities and political activities to sensitize people of various issues of either handicrafts, domestic industry, or other sort of developments, the women issues, or abolition of caste hierarchy or untouchability, which were part and parcel of the programs of the Indian National Congress, of course, initiated by Mahatma Gandhi, which led to the sort of gaining independence ultimately. So we will be discussing about the provisions of 1892 in the coming segment, as well as we'll try to also talk about one of the great moments in Indian history, in relation to the Muslims of India, called the Aligarh movement. So we'll be dealing on Aligarh movement in the coming segments. Thank you so much.